Hello everybody, today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to go through Fm25 wish lists that I've gathered from around the interweb. I'm going to give them a rating out of 5 whether I think they're going to be in Fm25, and then a second rating, 5 stars obviously, whether they will be implemented, but in later editions of Football Manager. So we're going to start off with the match engine. We know already that FM25 is going to be on the Unity engine, which is going to improve a lot of things. So the match engine you would think would be one. I expect this to improve not only in FM25, but in FMs in the future. So I'm actually going to give this 5 stars for both. I think over the next 3 or 4 years, it's going to improve massively, but also this year's game, I think, will improve. Now, the second one I've got is a match day experience. And by this, I mean the match adjustable boxes, being able to put different data in those boxes depending on what you want. For me, it's pretty much the only reason why I've downloaded skins in the past. I think that's for a lot of people. The match day experience overall, the screens aren't quite what you want them to be. If skins can do it, why can't Football Manager? Now, a lot of it is, but the skins do it, so there's no need to. I think the time for that kind of attitude has changed. I know that Football Manager has, Sports Interactive have a lot more staff now, so I think they've got to come up with the best parts of other people's skins for this new match experience, I suppose. Next, new stadiums. Please bring in new stadiums. Just giant footballs in the corner of stadiums just isn't a thing. Massive car parks side of a stadium isn't a thing. I think we need a stadium overhaul. I think it needs to be done so that you can always have it in sections as well, because if you're managing in South Africa, most of the time there isn't a stand. It'll just be you stand around the grass, around the edge of the pitch type thing. That needs to show in game a little bit more than it does. The big countries are going to have big stadiums. The smaller ones, maybe not so much. And when you upgrade it, you want physical differences. You want to be able to see where they're building when it's finished. You want to be able to see that this part's been built and now it's new. So that one I give 5 stars. I think it's going to be in this year's FM. I don't think it. I think obviously in the future it will improve, but I'm talking about sort of like the next cycle. So FM25 is going to be a brand new match and brand new graphics engine and everything. So I'm talking about the next sort of 5 years cycle. So I think it'll improve this year. I'm going to give it 5 stars this year's, and then you might get tweaks, but I don't think it'll improve after that. So for the rest of the cycle, probably 1-2 star maybe, is what I can see anyway. Next on my list, I have better finances. this is something that drives me insane, is Football Manager isn't very good at predicting prize money. Now, prize money isn't taken into account. I don't think sponsorships improve enough. They seem to be done on reputation, whereas a Luton Town or my team, Ipswich, next season, we're in the Premier League. Regardless of what the club's reputation is, we're going to get stupidly big sponsors because you're in the Premier League. The exposure is there. So I think all the finances need a bit of a tweak. And that's not just prize money and everything. I think, I don't know, I think they all could do with a bit of an adjustment. This year I'm going to give it a 3 for both FM25 and Going On. I don't think it's high on the list, but with the new engine, I think this engine will be able to hold. Excuse me. This engine will be able to hold more data than the previous one, so I'm going to give it a 3 for both. I think it will be improved, but over a bit of time. So next, we have better staff AI. So, what I mean by this is anybody that's played Football Manager over the last few years will know that they brought in these team meetings and it's very repetitive. If you don't do something, say for instance, it says, oh, you want to stop this person's individual training, even if you click that you don't want to do that, it will tell you every single... Oh, excuse me. I apologise for that. Every single week it will tell you the same information, and it bugs me. Also, when it comes to players, both from scouting team and from a director of football, it's done again on club reputation, and for me, club reputation isn't enough, because you can get that lucky, as I say, get that lucky promotion to the Premier League, and then you're looking for Premier League players who might be a step above your club, but it should still be offering you those players, and those players, if they're in a lower division, will want to come to you, because you're in a bigger division. If you're in the same division, then they might be a bit more against coming to you. So you have to offer them more money because you're basically relegation fodder. I think the whole AI could really do with just that little tweaks here and there. And I'm going to give that a 4 for FM25 and a 5 Going On. I think it's something which they are going to work on over the next few years. Next, something for me is training. I've put training pathways. This is one of mine. Now, training does need an overhaul. It's not very well implemented within the game. But how we've got these player pathways now, I think you need training pathways. So you can say, right, I want this player to improve on his strength, but at the same time, I want his acceleration to go up. So if he improves, say, 5 points on the strength, then I want the training to catch up before he moves on to another 5. Or I want this player to work on being a wing back on attack but also at the same time learn how to play a fullback. You should be able to do more than one role, because a player training would be able to pick up more than one roles. And in this, again, get rid of these, there's no other way to put it, stupid things of where someone can play fullback and someone can play a sitting further forward wing back, but they can't play wing back from the back four line and things like that. Or someone can play midfield and defence out on the left, but can't play, but you put them in defence, as a wing back, and they're suddenly clueless. It's not realistic. I think the players' positions needs to, the training side of that needs to be a bit more accurate, where players can play in more than one position, and comfortably play in more than one position. Very rare, for example, a right winger wouldn't be able to play on the left wing. They would. They just wouldn't be as sort of natural, I suppose, in it. But they'd still be able to do it. And maybe a way that I've just thought whilst going through this to implement that would be that if you move a player from, say, right wing to left wing, it gives you a different set of attributes. So you have an attribute for the places they're really comfortable at, and then as it goes down the list of where they're less comfortable, their attributes change alongside it, and then the adaptability can also work at, you can have a new trait like picks up new positions, so that if a player's got that trait, then it doesn't matter where you play them, their stats say the same. But I think that could be an interesting thing. Where do I see it? FM25, I'm going to give it a 2-star. I think it will be, it will look different, but I think it'll pretty much be the same thing as it is now. Over the next 5 years, I'm going to up it to 3, maybe 4. I think it's something they will work on, but I think they're going to have other things on their minds before that. The next one I've got is Wonder Kids. I think we need more variation in the Wonder Kids, and people say there's too many Wonder Kids, this and that, as you go on through the years. Yes, but they're considering their older players still as Wonder Kids when they're not anymore. They're like the better players in the world. I do think you need more variation. You need a random Wonder Kid popping up in South Africa, for example. I think the balance isn't quite there of where these players are coming from and how they're coming through. Wonder Kids are one in a generation type players, so there should be more random countries popping up with these Wonder Kids in my mind. I think there should be less Wonder Kids from, say, England, Brazil, but more from throughout the world. I think that can make a big difference. And as far as this year's FM goes, I'm going to give it a 1. I can't see it improving. As far as it goes on the future 5 years, probably a 2. I don't think it's something massively on their priority list. I think over time it will genuinely improve, because I think that as more leagues get added, which we'll come to in a later thing, obviously then you create more places for Wonder Kids to come through. Now the next one I've got is tutorial mode. Now FM over the years has been terrible at welcoming new players. I'm just going to have a bit of coffee. Excuse me. I'm sorry about that, but I needed to. So what we need is a tutorial mode that runs through maybe the first season with a describing everything that happens throughout a whole season, going through a whole season. Maybe you can get, I think James Alcott's still there, one of their media people. Maybe you get someone like James to play a season of the game and it goes onto YouTube. Or you get somebody like Kev, Loki, Work the Space, Ben, to create the first season, and Football Manager tells them what they want. Football Manager gives them screens to explain each part of that season, and they release it on day one of the beta. They've obviously worked all this through on the alpha. They release it day one of the beta, and it explains everything. And then in Football Manager itself, you can link to their videos. Now, I know that a lot of these people have skins. I know that Zealand, Work the Space, work on skins regularly. So I think they've, on most of their skins, they've got a link to their YouTube or Twitch. But I think FM as a base game should have something similar for players to be able to go through tutorial, rather than it just being a screen of information. You want a bit of information, and then next to that you've got a deep dive video of one of the FM creators. Maybe you have a different creator for each section of the game, but one of the FM creators explaining that section of the game. Now, I think that's the perfect way of introducing it. It brings in new players to the community as a whole. It gives the creators a little bit of a thank you. And yeah, I just think it's the best way to fix that. Tutorial mode, we're calling it. And I'm going to give it 5 stars for this year and 3 stars for the future. I don't think it's going to be what I've said. I very much doubt it will be with videos, unless it is just James Alcott or a member of the FM team. But I think there will be something significant with the new engine the game's running on. There's got to be a new tutorial. They can't rely on their old base players like me, who are now in their 40s, 30s, 50s, like they used to. If they want to progress, that's a thing. Next, I've got a little short one. Postponement of games. You want games postponed for weather incidents, especially more as you're further down the pyramid. Games are getting suspended all the time for waterlogged pitches and things like that. Adding something like that in would be really good for immersion, and it should be added in the long term for me. But in FM25, I'm going to give it a 1 star. I don't think it's going to happen. For future FMs, again, I'm probably going to stay with a 1. I don't think it's high on their list. I can't see it being implemented. Next we have, I can't remember if I said stadium or ground editor. Just in case I didn't, I've seen it a lot. People want a stadium editor or a build a stadium thing. I'm going to say 1 star this year, 1 star future. It's not something they're going to do. A manager doesn't build a stadium. And people say, yeah, Arsene Wenger, he didn't really, did he? Let's be realistic here. But no, I can't see that. Right, being an interim manager. Now, this is something I've seen floated around. Now, the ability to be an interim manager. Now, we all know that in FM, you can agree to start a job at the end of your current season if a club comes and asks you. Now, you should be able to be that, interim manager as well. So, say you're out of work and you apply for a job and they say, oh, sorry, this person's going to take over at the end of the season. Why don't you come in as interim manager? Or they say, right, we've sacked our manager. It's the middle of February. We'd like to have you until the end of the season. You perform well, you'll keep the manager job. You don't, you'll lose it. So that's interim manager. Now, I think that's going to be... I'm going to give it a 2 for FM25 and a 2 for the next grab. I think if it's going to happen, it's going to happen this year. Otherwise, I think it's probably, it might be one of those ones that they just slot in as a 5 a day from Miles or something. Next, people are asking for a youth/B team upgrade. Now, I don't know what a lot of people mean by this. I think what they're saying is they want it to impact the first team more often. They want you to have more influence over it, which I know you can have different things, but I think more influence within youth recruitment, like you send a scout off to, I don't know, Genoa. Let's be right. Say for instance, I sent a scout off to South Africa. Now, what I could do is you want to be able to create youth scout assignments for me. This is the way to do it. Youth scout assignments, and then on your next youth intake you might start seeing more players from that country coming through, and they'll be the better players of the bunch because you've handpicked them out of those countries. I think obviously I would implement it as the under 18 staff. I would bring in under 18 scouting staff so that you can build upon that a bit more. I think that would be a really good thing to introduce. So as far as FM25 goes, I'm going to give it a 1. Going forward, a 3. I think if Miles or anyone has that idea, it will be implemented. I can see that really working on building out the game a little bit more. Next, we have more leagues. Obviously, we've got the Premier League, as you can see behind me, licensed this year. I don't mean licensed leagues. Let's get this clear now. as far as licensed leagues, I'm going to give it a 5-star because we know it's happening this year, and a 5-star for the future. It's going to happen constantly throughout the FM cycle. It's high up on their lists. But when I say more leagues, I mean like dropping down a few divisions in England, bringing out more leagues throughout Africa and Asia, and bringing in more leagues so that you've got a wider experience. A lot of it could just be with a new gen type players in. They don't have to scout all these things. You can just, obviously you've got the tick box for add players and staff to playable leagues. You just need that. That's all you need. And then add in all these leagues. I can see that happening, and I think it probably will happen for both now and the future. And with that, I've got more countries, playable leagues. So, yeah, like I was saying, more countries. So you can have Egypt, Ghana, Nigeria, along with South Africa and things like that. I think it's going to go that way. Yeah. So, next we have New Gen Faces. It's 100% changing, 5-star this year. I'll give it 2-star for the next 5 years. I think they'll make a massive improvement. You've got new gen face packs out there with real AI generated faces. It wouldn't take an awful lot for them to add an AI generated face model within Football Manager. I think it will happen this year. Can't see them working on it anymore because that is one of the things that tends to improve in blocks rather than game cycles. Next, spending wages on coaching badges. This is something people have been asking for. Now, spending the wages is a bit of a sore spot because it's not part of football management. And you can go down a whole rabbit hole. Was it what game was it? Was it FIFA Manager or something? Or one of them where you could, buy cars, and yeah, it wasn't very good. It wasn't a manager game then. It was management. It was weird. But when it comes to coaching badges, yes, I think it will happen. I'm going to give it a 4 for FM25 and a 1 for future, because they might save it for the next game, potentially. I think, though, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen this year. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. Next, crowd sound. Yeah. The sound in Football Manager is shocking at best. Again, AI models nowadays can create great sound. With the Premier League license, you can go to a ground and record the sound. A lot of people play without the sound, so I can understand it not being on their main list. So, crowd sound, I'm going to give it a 2, with potentially a 3, I think. Don't think they're going to be that worried about it. Now, commentary. We had it back in Championship Manager 2, but it was taken out, and the reason why was new gen being able to pronounce their names when you get further into the future. AI now, as someone that has dabbled with AI, it has improved to the point where in most language models you're having to add a delay in because it sounds unnatural how quickly it would respond to you chatting to it. I don't think it'll be in this year's FM. I'm going to put that down. I think it'll a 1. It will come in the future, though. I'm going to put it right up at a 4 for future, because AI is up to that level now where it could do a running commentary with what is projected on screen at the same time as what is projected on screen. It can already do it. So wait for those models to become slightly smaller in terms of size, and it will happen. Next, upgrade facilities despite club reputation. So if the club's got money, why can't you upgrade the training facilities? Why can't you upgrade the pit, the stadium? The club always goes, we don't need to, but you should always be striving for better. I mean, if I went and gave my local town £5 million, they're going to invest it in the club, aren't they? They're not just going to sit there with it in the bank. I think I'm going to give that a 2 for FM25 and a 2 for future. I just have a feeling it's not high on their list. Number 20, better playing instructions. Now, by this I mean, like, you can tell a specific player to do X, Y, Z. At the moment, you click one, like a position, and then it blocks off. Oh, you can't play slightly narrower as a winger. Well, why not? I'm just going to finish my coffee. Sorry about that. Yeah, why can't you play slightly inside as a winger? Because, I mean, Ipswich are a prime example. The left winger plays in a couple of steps to free space for Leaf, and then from that winger position he does cut in a little bit, but it's not an inverted winger. It is a winger whose positioning is slightly further in. Stuff like that. Being player instructions just generally need an overhaul. I'm going to give it a 5 this year. I think they're going to do it. And 3 for future. I think it's going to be something they will work on this time. Shouts is next. Shouts. And also I'm going to time this. Players having human reactions. You give them praise, and they're like, how dare you praise us? We only beat the champions 1-0, or we only lost 1-0 to Manchester City when we're Fleetwood. How dare you praise us? it's not realistic. It shouldn't happen. There's no reason for it happening. I think shouts will get an overhaul this year. I'm give it 5-star and 5-star this year, and then they'll leave it, so it'll be a 1 for future. But it's going to happen this year. Players having human reactions, we built into the shouts thing. That's like, I want a new contract every 2 weeks as well. It's not realistic. You've got like a 5-year contract and they come up to you saying, I want a new contract or I'm leaving at the end of my contract. And you're like, fine, do it. You got 5 years. Players are a bit too volatile in this. So yeah, that's added on. Now, the next one is a big one. International management. People want an overhaul of international management. And this is one I had to take a little bit up with. Why? International management is boring. And you spend 9 months of the year, probably more than that, 10 months of the year looking at players, watching games. You're basically a glorified scout that then has the ability to bring players into your team every few months. It's not exciting. Yes, I grant that. And people do want it to change, but how? Nobody seems to have an answer for it, but expect Sports Interactive to have one. I'm going to give this a 1 for FM25 and a 1 going on. I don't think there'll be a massive overhaul in it. I think there'll be small adjustments, but I can't see them doing it. It's a part of the game that's just not... That's sadly, realistic is dull to be a country manager, because most of the year you're doing sweet FA. So, next we have more tactical instructions. Now, I want to be able to say, like, I know you can to some extent, but I want to be able to bring out scenarios, you know. I want you to keep hold of the ball for the first 10 minutes, or I want you to press really high for the first 10 minutes, go all out, and then hold on to the ball, and then maybe go just before half time, or I want you to go full out until you drop and I'll substitute you off. As a tactical instructions, I think there should be a lot more depth in it. I think with the new graphics engine, I think that will be the case. I'm going to say 5 stars for both. I genuinely think that moving on to Unity has been in the pipeline for the last 5 years, and there's going to be so much changing. I think it would have been in FM24 for the 20th anniversary, I think it was, something like that. But I think it would have been here for this year's game as such, so without the pandemic. So I think, if anything, they're making it better now. They're adding even more stuff. So with that, I put in contracts. We've already discussed that with players coming up and moaning about contracts. Next, VAR. Whether you love it or hate it, why do we have to wait for that 10 seconds for VAR? We already know the result because the linesman flags regardless if it's offside. So why? I know it's realism. I don't need to sit and wait through VAR to enjoy the game, and it bugs me. I'm going to put that as a 5 and a 5. I think a 5 and a 2, I suppose, actually. I think it's going to be in this year's. I think it's going to be implemented a lot differently this year, how it should have been from the first point. I think they realise that making people wait 10 seconds is just annoying. It doesn't take away the immersion. So let's see. Multiple selecting for trials. Now, when you ask the director of football for out-of-contract players or players he thinks you should sign, especially in lower leagues, you get, say for instance, you ask for a player in every position on a free transfer, and you get a list of 20 players. You used to be able to highlight all 20 players and offer them loans. And then 1 year was taken out for no reason whatsoever. It just makes things harder and slower. Put it back in. I'm going to give it a 1 for FM25 and a 1 overall. I don't think they're going to do it, or if they do, it'll be by accident. But I want it. Please do it. Some people are talking about hard difficulty. Let's move straight on over that. It's a 1 for both. It's a stupid idea. There's not a hard difficulty in football, and anyone that's saying we want a hard difficulty, go to the 3rd league in Finland and do a save from there. It's hard, especially if you're only picking scouted players. You can make the game as hard as you want by only doing players your scout says, by going to an obscure country that you've got no idea or clue how things work. Hard difficulties are rubbish. Sorry for anyone that thinks that's a good idea. It's not. It's stupid. Next, we have coaching setup. Now, some people don't even realise there is a coaching setup screen, but you get a coaching setup screen and then you add them to what parts of the training you want them to, and then it says how heavy their workload is. Firstly, if you change the training schedule, their workload changes, so you have to go in and do that every time you change the schedule. So that's not very good. I want that to be more dynamic. I'm going to give this a 4 for FM25 and a 3 for going on. I think they will work it into a new training schedule. I think that might come this year. We've got 2 more. Now, more licenses, more licensed leagues is a 5 and a 5. They're always going to work on it. They're going to work on it forever until they have every license there. It's going to happen regardless of what. And women's football. Now, women's football was announced about 3 years ago that it was coming to FM. I'm going to give it a 5 to come in FM25. And obviously, beyond doesn't matter. But I'll give it a 5. I think one of the main reasons they've come onto this new engine is for the women's game, so that you can have 2 separate almost match engines, one for men, one for female. That's going to happen. I can't see it not happening now. I think, again, all this was supposed to happen last year, but with the pandemic they didn't, and released FM23, which wasn't the best game, and they held their hands up and announced FM25 when FM24 was announced. So yeah, for women's, I'm 90% sure it's going to be in this year's game. Right, I've rabbited on for about 45 minutes now, so I'm going to leave it there for today's video. Join me tomorrow for the continuation of the Pro Vicelli Chronicles. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Any ideas of your own, please leave in the comments, and maybe we'll do a follow-up video, or we'll see where I was right and where I was wrong when FM is released later in the year. But if you've enjoyed that, again, please leave a like. Subscribe if you're new. I've been the Masked Manager, and until next time, I have spoken.